Hello, everyone. This is Arwin. Welcome to Flat Earth Talks. Today, I'm going to talk about a subject that I have been talking about for a long, long time, and that has undergone a few changes, quite a few. It's been very highly debated, even at the Flat Earth debates, talked over with a lot of my Flat Earth friends, and even some ballers. So, yeah, it's a subject of interest. uh, the formerly known downward acceleration force that is now been renamed to fit more properly the upward acceleration effect. So, yeah, we're going to talk about this subject today, and I have a few panel members with me. Uh, Adam, Adam Meekins, Rasta Hat, and Mark Doxey. Welcome,
Hello,
guys.
hello, gentlemen.
Yo, yo.
Good afternoon, gents.
Yes. So, thank you for joining. Uh, let's get it on with. So, what are you guys? What are we going to start about? How this came into being, the previous debates, or shall I pump out a very detailed definition?
I think I've got one bit of housekeeping to do.
Ah, all right. What is that?
Pressure without a push or a pull. Uh, Specifically about the egg and the water. And I'd just like to note the force being applied to the egg all the way around the egg while it's at its state of equilibrium, not while it's in motion, up or down, as some choose to say, but as it sits at its equilibrium, surrounded by pressure, surrounded by force, perhaps.
Well,
I just think there's an interesting possible correlation there that
oh yeah. No, let me immediately respond to that, and that was the whole foundation of why I was very adamant about calling it a force. The only problem is, yeah, there seems to be a force working on it. Uh, well, basically expressing the density and buoyancy effects as they function. But yeah, because we can't, yeah, point out an actual motion, it does not cohere to the official requirements for it to be able to call it a force. Yeah, except for what we can deduce, which is very straightforward, very clear, very universal. So yeah, it's a nitty gritty detail. It's by the letter, and yeah, it definitely seems like there is a force. It would almost have to be, but you can't prove that there is a motion going on, and therefore it does not. Yeah, it does not uphold the requirements, unfortunately.
well, when I roll a marble down a hill, it doesn't require me to push it or pull it. It
Hmm.
attains motion, which I believe there was a recent citation that stated motion can only happen upon a push or a pull. And I believe if you roll a wheel or a marble down a hill, or simply allow it to, through the current topic of whatever force may or may not be at play, the marble will roll down the hill, but you did not have to push it or pull it. So therefore, there is perhaps a force being applied or at play.
Well, that would be a logical deduction, and yes, I agree fully.
And it
Unfortunately, a
contradicts the
deduction is,
cited
yeah.
statement, the cited material uh, that I believe was shown yesterday that strictly stated that there had to be a push or a pull. And I believe that those are just two tiny examples where that highly contradicts the literature.
maybe it is difficult to say. What I got from that specific definition, that was basically for me the drop that made the bucket spill, and well, made me change my mind into conceding and no longer calling it a force, was that motion, acceleration, motion is involved, or
If you put a
centrifugal
brick
motion.
on your toe, Arwen, is there force being applied even though there's no motion?
Of course, there's weight.
Of
You can
course.
feel the weight of it, and weight only happens when a force is being applied to mass. But yeah, or
And
a force-like effect.
and then let's clear this one up. Volume. Volume has nothing to do with the density or the buoyancy,
That's
because I can have a tiny little nut, with a thread on the end of a screw, and it has very, very little volume, but it's going to fall very fast. And the Zeppelin, if you don't keep it tethered, well, it's not going to fall down. If you try to actually draw the Zeppelin down on its tether so low that you could actually set it on a scale, you could manually change the read of the scale by simply adjusting the tethers of the Zeppelin.
Yes, but I have to slightly disagree. Volume absolutely has to do with density buoyancy, but not volume as an isolated effect. It is
No, because
always the
listen,
combination of the volume and the mass,
no,
which is density,
no,
that makes the rearrangement in the form
no,
of buoyancy happen the
no.
way it does.
If I have a 5 cubic foot space balloon, and I have a 3 cubic foot space balloon, and I fill them both with helium, those balloons are going to rise at an equal rate, even though one balloon has more helium in it than the other.
Yeah, but it's because of the average density
No,
of the entire thing.
it specifically contradicts the volume.
No, but it's the total object as a whole, the combined density value of all things combined as a unit
We just
compared to
show,
the surroundings, and that is what makes it buoyant and
if
find
I
its
have two
equilibrium within the
balloons
layers.
and I put helium in them, even if one has larger volume, they will still rise at the same speed.
Yeah,
Which
but
completely
hold on,
contradicts.
hold on. That has nothing to do. Like that is just the speed by which things motion. With
That has to
using
do with the
please,
volume.
Rasta, please let me finish. Okay, this is live. Okay, the speed by which it goes has nothing to do with the volume. It only has to do with how much friction allows the motion. Just like in a vacuum, things will drop at an accelerating rate without finding a point where the friction of the materials it is passing through causes a constant speed within the fall. And the same
This
goes for things going upward.
all contradicts volume having an effect.
It
Nowhere
does.
in your explanation did volume have any effect on the
It
circumstances
does.
at
The
play.
volume determines, combined with the total mass of the object, the combined total volume mass ratio will determine the layer within the material it will settle and find its equilibrium in
Nobody's
accordance
arguing
to
that.
buoyancy.
Nobody's arguing that.
Well,
Nobody's
that's
arguing that. I fully agree with that.
yeah,
That's not
exactly.
the issue at play. We're talking about the rate and the amount of force when compared to volume. The force of the lift of the helium balloon of one size is equal to the force of the lift of the other helium balloon if
Absolutely,
only left to themselves. But
absolutely.
if
But
but
there
if
are
hang on, if
exceptions,
you
though.
attach them to an object, then you will see a different force at play in the amount of lift at that point. As where in the example of a very small balloon, you can hold in your hand, but a balloon too big, you'll go floating away as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's because of all things attached as one. Basically, in the buoyancy effect counts as a unit, and there's the average density of the whole thing.
But if you let those balloons go, they'll travel side by side.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Because of the average density, no matter the total volume, will be pretty much consistent with each other.
Which, thank you for confirming my point. Volume is not relative on that aspect.
Could I step in there just from my
Yes.
understanding? From my understanding, I think what we're saying there is if we take two balloons of different volume, that we ensure that they've got the same gas at the same relative pressure, although they occupy, say, one occupies 1 litre and one occupies 2 litres. The rate of rise of those two balloons would.
Oh dear. You're breaking up again, Adam.
I said the rate of rise would be the same, even if
right.
the volume was
You're
different,
correct.
as long as the internal pressures were equal to each other. So, if all things being equal, other than the volume, then the rate of rise through the atmosphere would be equivalent, irrespective of the size of it.
You're exactly right. Even though their lift capabilities, when it comes to weight, is different, obviously. But when left to themselves, they will travel equally.
So the secondary portion is ascribed to what force the balloons could exert on another object, the larger one being able to exert a larger.
Right, because the amount of helium can supersede in its amount of displacement required for the amount of space that its less dense existence occupies, can supersede the anchor that it's attached to, and under those circumstances has the ability to lift that object.
Let me make a clear-cut comparison to a helium balloon rising, no matter the size, at the same rate. It is pretty much exactly the same like air bubbles rising up in the water. They will always go at the same speed, no matter the size of the air bubble being released in the water.
Thank you for confirming my point, Arwin. I appreciate that.
Right. So yeah. So what does the upward acceleration effect have to do with any of this? Because, well, we've been basically talking about effects of density and buoyancy, how they work, how they apply. And yeah, hold on. Getting rid of some trolls here. What does it have to do with any of these effects of density and buoyancy? And let me clarify. Absolutely nothing. It has nothing to do with any of the effects of density and buoyancy. There's only one thing that it has an influence on within the stationary setting of this world, and that is the direction. The direction of the density buoyancy axis. The alignment of the axis. And why do I say this? Well, because when you apply a force, a force like an accelerating car, like a centrifuge, then the axis of the direction of the density buoyancy alignment will change as the new force is applied. It will first try to find an equilibrium within the forces. It will motion around and settle as fast as it can. And then it will, if the forces within the equilibrium stay exactly stable, so the acceleration will have to be constant, at a constant rate, then the density buoyancy alignment will settle just as it would settle in the up and down alignment in a stationary fashion on the Earth. So that is the only thing that the upward acceleration effect has to do with. And some people might ask, why upward? That seems so odd, We're used to the downward because, it's just an intuitive reminder like, oh, yeah, you have a stone, you drop it. It accelerates down. That's a mistake. That's a mistake.
Let's take the balloon back to the car for a minute and just slow it down here. like I said before, things are all too rushed and things are all too overlooked when things that are perhaps smaller and not quite so obvious may be taking place. Correct, when you accelerate and you maintain acceleration, that balloon will indeed be thrust
Forward.
by its by the ambient air around it in the direction that it
Yeah.
will be.
And while
But
you at the same
but
time will be thrusted backwards in your seat.
right, but that's not what I'm talking about. Let me continue. The balloon will still have its urge to go up that will still be acting against the new force direction
Yeah.
that's been applied to it.
Yes.
And so, as I believe Nathan cited yesterday, that yes, the balloon is going to go in the direction that it is pressed upon continual acceleration. And you may not visually see, and in fact, the balloon may not rise at all because the force of the acceleration may be too much and overcome it. But that doesn't take away the force of the balloon of to go up is still there,
I know.
even though it's not being able to physically manifest fully into motion due to the superseding forces
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
under.
That is when you basically, uh, yeah, put the forces next to each other and then see the equilibrium. The only problem is we have no causal relationship. What causes this
That's never
this
equilibrium.
apparently present force? So we can't call it a force, but it
With the
seems to respond exactly like a force, and that was why I was holding on to my point for so long, wanting it to call it a force. But anyway, to get back to my point before we continue on, why do I call it the upward acceleration effect? Well, because it is like an upward acceleration force. It is not a force because I can prove it, so I'm calling it an effect, but it responds exactly like that because when you accelerate, like we talked about earlier before you went off in another direction, things that are light will, as you accelerate, thrust forward, and things that are heavier than the surroundings will thrust backward. Thus, if you accelerate forward direction, light things will go forward, heavy things will go backward. And yeah, that's basically the setting. If
But light is
hold on,
relative.
please.
You're
If
going off on a
things
tangent.
dude, if things accelerate upwards, then light things will go upward, like lighter density will go upward, and heavier will go downward. And that
But
is why I call it the upward acceleration effect.
okay, well,
Because it
first
is
and
the
foremost,
alignment of the density buoyancy
okay, well, you came to a
ratio
period
that it
right there.
is causing.
You came to a period right there. So the thing is, my God, you started talking again right after you had stopped. Um, threw me off. Um, damn it, no swearing.
Now you can swear if you like, just don't
No, I'm
overdo
just
it.
trying to get back on track because you ended your statement, but then all of a sudden rattled out another like statement, like after you said what you said. Like I'm trying to remember what the second to last point that you just made was. Oh, God, never mind. Go
I
ahead.
was talking about the acceleration, why I call it the upward acceleration effect, because that is the direction in which the density buoyancy aligns. So that is the conclusion that I would draw. It is exactly like the entire world is accelerating upwards, although there is no proof of this actual motion, because
But
the density buoyancy aligns itself in accordance to that
oh,
type of effect.
thank you. You just reminded me. Now I understand what I'm saying. But not everything experiences the upward accelerational force, like force, for in the direct contradiction between things that go one direction and things that go the other direction. Whether you say that there's a downward force or whether there's an upward force, there's always going to be objects that are going to go in one of those directions that are
Yes,
the opposite of the other things.
indeed. because
And
of
so
the
therefore,
alignment of the density buoyancy.
right, the density
the-
and the buoyancy.
The alignment of it. It's very specific.
Oh, you were saying about something being light. This is what it was. Weight is what's relative. Arwen, when you're
Yes,
talking
yeah.
about density and
Less
buoyancy.
dense, more dense. Ah, come on. It's my
No,
second language.
I'm saying no, the weight is relative because if you have a submarine and it's at equilibrium, it technically in the water where it sits will feel weightless. The submarine itself will feel weightless. If you're inside of it, of course, it's going to feel normal, but the submarine's going to be technically experiencing weightlessness because it's going to have pressure from all sides around it equally. And so technically what on dry land is a very, very, very heavy submarine in the water at equilibrium could technically be described as weightless. So therefore, weight and light and heavy, all those words, they are all A, subjective, B, relative to circumstances,
Yes.
and C, pretty inferior for the topicality.
Well, not necessarily. Like weight, the how we measure weight is basically the apparent force, apparent because we have no proof of it, of
You
the
mean
upward accel. Oh, dude,
Newton's?
dude,
I
please
just asked you a question.
don't
Stop yelling.
interrupt me while I'm
Stop
talking.
yelling.
Okay,
Stop yelling. Just stop yelling. Just stop yelling. I
don't
just asked you a
interrupt
question.
me, please.
I said, are you explaining a Newton?
It's really annoying when you interrupt me. Okay,
You're just not listening. You're just wasting time. Are you describing a Newton?
A Newton.
A measure of mass.
Yeah, it is founded in the standard upward acceleration force effect, causing a force being applied to matter in a stationary fashion. That is it. That is how weight has been established. That is how an average weight has been established. It's only
in the hangout yesterday. There was weight measured, one in pounds or kilograms, but then there was another that was measured in newtons.
okay.
And there was a differentiation. And
Could be.
No, not could be, is.
Oh, fine. That I'm not too familiar with that specific branch of the concept. I should look into that. But yeah, I'm still used to the concept of weight. It's a very average terminology. But I think that Newton, sure. Newton.
No, not Isaac Newton. A Newton. Is it measured in Newton, not in Isaac Newton? Is it measured in? This is what Riley was trying to explain to you. You've got to explain it in the accurate values involved. Are you going to say how much does that soda can weigh and say it weighs 4 cents? No. And so you're going to say it weighs how many grams or how many ounces,
right,
or so forth.
So is 1 Newton, is that basically the apparent force of the stationary setting of the Earth? Is that it?
I have no idea the limitations of what they attach the moniker of 1 unit Newton to exactly.
I'm gonna look it up.
Sure.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
But you should also look up if it's a fig Newton or a strawberry Newton, what the difference in their force capabilities are. Because a cookie's just a cookie, but a Newton is fruit and cake.
A Newton is 1 gram.
There it is. A Newton is 1 gram, both in the fig type and the mass unit type.
Okay.
Oh wait, I see it now. It is.
It's 9.
It is the force combined with the weight, and then how much it is required exactly to accelerate. Okay, so it is another branch to apply the effect, the elements.
The direction of force, I think we would all agree, is going to be different based on the direction you're going to attempt to try to achieve acceleration and motion. If you try to push a 20-pound stone across the ground, it will take a certain amount of force, as opposed to if you try to lift it above your head, it'll take a separate amount of force. I would say if it's on the ground, just shoving it, its weight plus the resistance, there you go. There's something to figure out. And then you've got its own independent weight, and see if the drag, when combined with the shove, is equal or less than or greater than the single lift. You can find some values with that.
Can we just make a statement as to where we're all standing? Anthony believes that the only force is buoyancy. Is that correct?
Yeah. I don't know what he believes, but buoyancy has nothing to do with it.
No. I'm just saying what Anthony, according to what I understand, he's saying is that there's only one
density and buoyancy.
Density and buoyancy. However, I believe that there is a downward force called gravity, and that is only limited to that. I'm not talking about orbits or anything like that. It's just that the downward force that I feel, that I experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, believe.
And you just like it. You just feel good with the word gravity, so therefore it just doesn't bother you to say it.
Wow.
Well, yeah, probably, yeah, probably.
Well, I have the same thing, but yeah, I have to watch my word, or what's going to happen.
But the truth is the best, and if it makes you guys feel good to say it and own it, then fine, take it, own it. I mean, enough groups try to take other people's words from other groups and use them as their own, and enough words have been stolen from us by the powers that be. So if you want to steal a word back, like gravity, you know what? More power to you. Take it. Maybe you'll apply more accurate meaning to the word, because so far there's no proof of gravity as the current occupiers of ownership of that word are using. So bully to you guys.
Yeah, I've been trying to redefine gravity, take away the gravitational pull element of it, basically taking away the cause and just defining the effect. And yeah, so gravity, fine. But in debates, I will definitely call it the upward acceleration effect, because of scientific details, because I can't call it a force. But yeah, it seems to be a force. It responds exactly like a force. And hey, if it smells like a force, if it looks like a force, if it responds like a force, it's probably a force, but science dictates that I can't call it a force unless there is a proven motion, unfortunately.
No, not motion, because as we already established, you can have force without acceleration or motion, like a brick on your toe. It's motionless. There's still force being applied.
Yeah, but why is that? That is because of the overlaying forces that causes density and buoyancy.
The squeeze of the environmental atmosphere that surrounds that brick, the 14 psi of ambient air, is both pressing on the top and all exposed sides of surface area of the brick.
Mm-hmm.
All of that force is being applied to whatever surface is stopping that brick from continuing motion.
Right, but that's
so the
pressure.
Force is call it what you want. There is force being applied, even though the brick is stationary all the time.
I know.
And when you take away the thing blocking the brick, the force of the squeeze of the air from the top will continue. It will continue from all sides at that point. Yet on the downward side of that brick, that squeeze that's the same as the top will not be tight enough to stop the brick from going ahead and accelerating up to its terminal velocity.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still trying to figure out to what extent, I would say, how far down, because we know it's down and we know that it's dense, so therefore it's going that way, and a huge mass volume of a Zeppelin blimp will go up. So we've got that figured out. We also know that it takes a different type of force to move things laterally.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, but I still would, Oh, sorry. You're not
I was
finished?
just going to say, and you're going to find rare natural forces that will move things laterally.
None of it. It's only mechanical forces that can do that, basically. Or yeah, if the how do you say movement from a
Like
diagonal surface, basically, that can cause that kind of. But I would like to get back and claim here that this pressure, this pressure from material in a stationary fashion, is only there because there is a upward acceleration effect applying that. It is like a force because in a free fall scenario where clearly density and buoyancy no longer apply, there is no pressure of this kind. There is only the need for the materials within the force free zone to expand within the container and equalize there in that setting. But there is no more pressure because there is this apparent force that does cause all of this material within the container to crystallize as density and buoyancy and cause this pressure on things surrounding it,
When you fall
creating the
down,
layers.
when you fall down, the helium balloon rises. When you're in free fall, the helium balloon still rises because what you know as free fall as a denser object, the helium balloon does not know. So therefore, if you jump off the cliff and you take that helium balloon with you and you let it go, it's going to let you take that journey by yourself.
Yeah, but still, if you're attached in a total thing, you become as like a container, and the average buoyancy, the average density will then be accounted by the combined density of
The
all
helium
things that
balloon.
are attached as one object. That's how buoyancy works. The total object. So if you have a balloon filled with helium that has a very low density, wanting that part to go up naturally to find its equilibrium in the higher layers, and you as a person have a much higher density wanting to go down. So if you combine the two, you hold the balloon on a string, then you are then considered as one single object for the effects of buoyancy, trying to find the average density
Sure,
and then causing it to, well, basically uh, descend more slowly. Or if the balloon is very huge, you will suddenly be pulled up.
sure. But
So
we're
it's always
talking
the
about
combination of
not
the
holding them.
objects.
No, we're talking about independently of themselves. We already covered what they will do if you're holding on to the balloons
Yeah.
earlier. Now we're talking about what happens when they're separate. And at that point, the term free fall that you use in regards to upward acceleration force, that helium balloon will never experience that.
guys, could I just? I'm going to have to shoot in a second. Or when I just had
Mhm.
um, from my point of view, the buoyancy and density things are fairly well established. But the thing that's not established is, and I think you've alluded to it, Arwen, is what actually outside of we know that different things of different densities will order themselves. The question surely is what defines the ordering, i.e., what determines that light things go up and
Yeah,
heavy things go down? What
the
is the
alignment.
now that underlying cause of alignment doesn't have to have anything to do with gravity, buoyancy, or density. And I think that's the thing we're looking for is what is the underlying causative effect of direction of ordering of buoyancy and density?
That
Force.
is the question. No, that
That's
he's
the whole
talking about
point.
the layering.
But that's the whole point. In a non-stationary situation, force causes the alignment to shift its axis
But
in another direction. So yeah, I would conclude, I would deduce that it is absolutely force that determines the alignment of the density buoyancy directions, that determines up and down. And even in a stationary fashion, it's just only because I can't prove emotion of the entire world that, yeah, I'm gonna call it an effect.
Arwen, do you believe that the density buoyancy is different or the same density and buoyancy, whether you're in water or whether you're on a dry piece of land, or whether you're in free fall? And a lot of people are liking to talk about the vomit comet. So if
Hmm.
you're in free fall, do you believe that actual the the actual type, the specific density and the buoyancy are the same in the
No.
water as they are on the land? They
Yes.
just are affecting the items differently.
No.
Yes.
No, it depends on the motion. So in a stationary setting in the water or in the air, wherever you are, if you are not moving, if you are not accelerating, if you're not being centrifuged, then the density and buoyancy will be exactly the same. It's just that if you are in a thicker layer of material, the rearrangement of the layers of the density that you or whatever you're dealing with is a part of will arrange itself in accordance to its density layer that it will be wanting to go to if it can.
I'm
But
not arguing that.
in the motioning body, then suddenly other forces, due to the acceleration, due to the motion, are being applied, causing the object with all material within that object to realign itself, to either in a diving plane counter the forces that naturally cause density and buoyancy to express within its alignment, or if you're accelerating sidewards, then to suddenly shift the axis of the density buoyancy rearrangement.
It
So yeah,
doesn't
it
shift it,
depends
it
on
adds
if.
it.
Hmm?
It adds it. It doesn't shift it, it adds it. Like we already discussed about the balloon in the car, where even though it may be forced up against the front of the car in continual acceleration, the urge of the force of that balloon that it still possesses to go up, it will still possess, even if the forces that
Of
are
course,
secondarily being applied
um,
supersede it, and it doesn't attain its
but the forces
acceleration.
are conjoined, and then yeah, the alignment resets itself in accordance to all the forces being applied.
It's
Can I?
not realigning. The
Yeah, it is.
pressure is being applied continually.
Yeah, but there is
It
other pressure now introduced. There is other forces being introduced, causing the entire
agreed.
content to realign itself in its direction.
It didn't realign. It's due to the continual force being applied in two different directions. The acceleration of the car forcing the balloon forward, plus the ever ending urge for that balloon to rise. Those forces will stay at play
Yeah, of
until that
course.
car becomes at
I'm not
rest. The
denying that.
balloon is never finding its equilibrium. It is continually being held back and in its unnatural state of non equilibrium.
Okay, okay, let me readdress that. In a relative position within the motioning or in the accelerating body. That is what I was talking about. It's always in the relative area that to which the forces are applied.
Oh,
That
you and
realignment.
Einstein, like you both like relativity and you both like upward acceleration of the Earth. They seem to be
It's I'm only
one and the same.
describing the buoyancy effect within a container and forces being applied to it, and then well, yeah, the it can definitely stabilize like the
So
density. If there
Einstein,
is a constant acceleration like in a centrifuge, then yeah, all the materials within that centrifuge will perfectly realign. They will eventually find an equilibrium, a perfect equilibrium, and they will stay like water, like unrippled water basically within the centrifuge if the rotation is stable enough and powerful enough. That is the realignment I'm talking about.
the force is going to be applied, forcing those things into those unnatural positions as long as the device
There is,
is
yeah,
turned on.
there is no equilibrium in the centrifuge.
Thank you. Thank
What
you.
you Yeah, you're not creating an equilibrium there. You're enforcing a static state.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adam. You are exactly right. I appreciate your intellect and wisdom.
Very kind of you. Well,
I
on that
don't
bombshell, I'm picking the
understand
right
the point.
shopping.
I really
Yeah,
don't understand the point
I'll have
here.
to catch up later. It's been a pleasure. Soon, boys. Yeah.
All right.
God bless.
Adam,
Owen.
Thanks for
thank you.
coming, Adam.
Cheerio.
See you later, Mark, and I'll see you later, Rasta.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mark.
Right. So I'm not getting this. I'm
Adam, explain that.
yeah, I didn't get it. I don't see the issue here. Like reinforcing whatever a force is being applied, the alignment of the density buoyancy
He just
within the
explained-
body to which the forces are being applied shifts in its direction.
He explained to you how in a centrifuge, it in and of itself, in what it is, it creates a state of non-equilibrium the entire time that it is activated upon all things contained within it. It is a continual state of never equilibrium. It is not a state of equilibrium.
No, but that's
Just like the
no, that
balloon.
is impossible. That is an impossible.
He just explained that
yeah,
to
it's
you.
wrong.
It's not.
It is.
It's just
No,
like the
an
balloon in the car.
equilibrium is finding a new balance. So to make a statement that it cannot find an equilibrium, that is an absolute falsehood.
Being
That's not what
shoved against the
equilibrium is.
wall.
That's not what equilibrium is. You can't be in a perpetual state of non-equilibrium unless random forces are constantly being applied in random directions. As soon as there is a stabilization to the forces being applied of any kind, there will be an equilibrium.
Think about your centrifuge or a merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Anything that is on the merry-go-round or in the centrifuge when those devices are activated will never find equilibrium, ever.
If it is in an enclosed thing, they definitely will.
No, you'll be slammed against the outermost wall of the merry-go-round, just like a ride at the fair.
And as long as it keeps doing that, you will find your equilibrium on the side.
No, that's not
Yeah.
equilibrium. That's force holding you there.
That's a new equilibrium.
No, because you can't
Yeah, it is.
control it.
That's a new
It's not
equilibrium.
equilibrium. You can't walk around freely when you're being pinned against the side of a wall on a
Yeah, you
spinning
can.
zipper.
I've
No,
done
you
it.
can't.
I've done it.
Give me a break.
I've done it. I've been
That's the
in
most
centrifuge.
dangerous thing, and they'd kick you out of an amusement park, for God's sake. Not to mention it's impossible.
It's not impossible. I've done it in person
Can't
when I was a
walk around a
kid.
spinning zipper.
I've done it. You could stand up against the side
yes,
and walk
Dave,
around.
Stand against the side, not walk around. You can't walk to the middle if you wanted to. You can't walk to the middle.
No, well,
you can
can
stay
you,
on the
can you walk
perimeter.
upwards into the air?
No, but you
Yeah,
said
exactly,
you can walk around.
because you can't
You
go
said you
there.
can walk. No, you're pinned against the side of the wall. You
Well,
can stay
if
on the
there was a
perimeter.
ladder to the bottom of the centrifuge, yeah, I could go up.
No,
just
you can't
like
go to the
in the
middle
real
of it
world.
because you're being pressed out. I'm saying you can't go to the middle of it because you're being pressed out.
Yeah, you
That's-
can, but it takes more force, just like it takes force to go upward in a stationary
Right,
fashion.
not equilibrium. Right, not
No,
equilibrium.
the equilibrium is there.
No,
It is.
You're either
All the
slammed
matter
against
has
the
been
wall.
rearranged in the new setting, with all
Where's
the forces being
equilibrium?
applied.
Where's the equilibrium on a spinning zipper when you're being pressed against the wall with all of that centrifugal force? Where's the equilibrium at that point? It's where when you get flung off that thing and you finally hit the ground and come to a stop.
No,
That's equilibrium.
No, then you return to the stationary equilibrium. That's different. Forces find their equilibrium. If a new
Mark,
force is applied, then it can find its equilibrium. If the force
if
is
you're being forced to the wall on a spinning zipper, that's not equilibrium,
yeah,
my
it
friend.
is. It is. It is a new density buoyancy equilibrium. It is.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. That's
It's a
unbelievable.
misconception. Sorry, but
that's unbelievable.
You're
That's
completely
unbelievable.
getting it wrong. Yeah, no, well, that's fine. Write a paper about it. I know what I'm talking about. This is part of the entire angle of discussion that I've been having, and now you're.
I just showed you a
suddenly, like-
physical circumstance and you denied centrifugal force.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You said that centrifugal force being applied is still equilibrium.
It's an equilibrium of forces being applied. Thus, a new density buoyancy direction and all of its effects will settle in and stabilize.
Absolutely not.
I'm sorry you're not understanding what I'm saying, but it's
No, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I'm telling you that it couldn't be further from accurate.
well, I'm sorry you disagree with me on that, but I'm absolutely certain of my case.
If you're on a merry-go-round, you're never going to have find your equilibrium. You may find a sustained balance by holding on, but you're never in equilibrium as long as that thing's in motion. Not only do you have the centrifugal force trying to throw you off that thing the entire time, but you have whatever amount of acceleration lasts until you find the sustained speed. But once you find sustained speed, you still have the force trying to throw you off the merry-go-round. And as long as that's trying to throw you off the merry-go-round, you're never, during that time, in equilibrium.
Right. So in a stationary setting, yeah, you're never going to find an equilibrium until you find solid ground under your feet. You're always going to keep on falling. You can hold on to something, but yeah, you will never
We're not
be
talking
in
about
equilibrium
falling.
until
We're
you
talking about
find ground
spinning.
under your feet.
We're talking about spinning,
Yeah,
not falling, spinning.
yeah. And I compared it to the stationary setting.
You can't compare
It's no
spinning
force
to
being
stationary.
applied.
Because we're talking about centrifuge and a spinning zipper, a tilt-a-whirl, and you were saying that when you're pressed against the wall, that's equilibrium, and I'm saying no, you're being pressed against the wall. It's the furthest thing from equilibrium. You can feel it in your face, the lack of equilibrium, because the blood's all rushing to the back of your head because you're pinned against the wall of the spinning zipper.
It depends
That's
on how
not
strong it
equilibrium.
is. It all depends on how strong it is, really.
If it's moving at all, there is a force being applied to you,
Yeah.
and so therefore you're not in equilibrium.
Well, the forces find a new equilibrium. So yeah, you are. If it spins in a stable fashion, and all the matter within the centrifuge will rearrange its alignment in accordance to the new equilibrium of the forces being applied. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It will be held out of equilibrium as long as the machine is functioning, and when it ceases to function and
Well, I
ceases
don't
to
know what
move,
your definition of equilibrium is, but I'm talking about
something
equilibrium
at
of
rest
forces.
in
I'm talking
its
about
natural state.
equilibrium of forces, okay? An
Me too.
equilibrium is a very wide concept. I'm talking about equilibrium of forces and the
Right. Me
expression
too.
of density buoyancy that comes thereof.
Me too. So am I.
Right.
I am as well.
So I don't know what your point was really.
I'm saying that if you're on a spinning zipper or a merry-go-round or in a centrifuge, when you're being pressed against that outside wall when it's spinning, you are not at equilibrium. Everything, your internal liquids and everything are being pressed into an unnatural position than they would be if you were at rest. And so until you once again become at rest, all your blood and everything will eventually start to build up and coagulate on that back side of your body right there.
No, it won't. It will do just as much as if you were laying down on your bed. Unless the centrifuge is really
spinning
powerful.
fast, right?
Yeah, but
like
it all
a
depends.
zipper.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, dude. It depends on how fast.
Right.
And if you do it as
lift the
fast,
entire existence, that's what you're talking about. Upward acceleration force. We're
it is
talking
a
about a
constant.
big one.
Yeah, but
and
that
it's
is
a big one.
constant.
Right. And so guess what? If it was a constant, then you would always be a constant, just like on the spinning zipper, and you would never have equilibrium.
I really don't get it, what you're talking about. All I know is there is, within a centrifuge, there is a weird difference with the way the forces are, because the further away from a spinning thing, from the center, the more powerful the forces actually become as they apply than compared to inward. And that is the
Yes.
big difference from a standard acceleration motion and the stationary setting. But
It's the basic
still,
definition
on
of
the
centrifugal
layers,
force.
they will find a relative equilibrium. The air won't just start turbulent, like they will eventually move in a stable fashion, with the centrifuge, and then, well, in another fashion, find a form of equilibrium. They will find a relative equilibrium. Let me just call it a relative equilibrium, because
So once again, relativity, Einstein, upward acceleration, flat Earth society.
no, has nothing to do with that. It's
That's
just
the definition.
relative equilibrium. Like
It's their
in that,
platform.
but in that sense, you're saying that okay, anything that moves, you're basically negating my entire theory. Everything.
Not even at
about
all.
it.
I'm saying
Everything. Yeah. If
it's
something
our-
is freaking moving, if something is accelerating, yeah, everything in that thing is relative. It's relative. The axis alignment of the density buoyancy ratio in that thing, it's but you're moving. It's not an equilibrium. Yeah, but relatively, that moving object, taken as it is, the alignment within it is actually changing. So
relatively,
you're
no.
undoing everything
No.
with that statement. Yes,
Relatively
you are.
speaking, it's not finding its equilibrium. And B, in relation to using upward acceleration force, all of the things you just mentioned, relativity, they're Einsteinian.
I'm not talking
They
about
are
the
flat
theory
Earth
of relativity.
society.
No, I'm not talking about the theory of relativity. I'm just saying relative.
No, you're using it. You're not talking about the theory. It's like we're not talking about the hammer. I'm using the hammer to bang a nail. You're not talking about it. You're using it to bang a nail. You're actually using it. Do you see what I'm saying? You're not talking about it. I'm talking about it. You're using it. That's the difference.
Well, thanks, dude. Thank you a lot, because you just completely derailed me. Anthony's gonna love this. Thanks a lot.
I didn't derail you.
Yeah,
We need to get to the bottom of this.
It the entire foundations of my complete theory, my complete case. You just completely
It's not your theory. It's Einstein's
derailed
theory.
me. Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot. You completely derailed me. Thanks a lot.
All I did was simply listen to what you said and then note that somebody else has said it before. That's all I did.
Well, thanks a lot.
But that's no bad on me.
So what is my case now? Well, what case do I have?
That you believe in Einstein and that you agree with the alignment of the Flat Earth Society, which agrees in relativity and Einstein-based upward acceleration like force.
Right. Oh, thanks a lot.
Well, it's not a bad position to stand on, like if like you have a basis to support it, which you're establishing. So
yeah,
therefore
that's making a cause. I don't have a cause. I do not claim a cause. And it is like it's not relatively has nothing even to do with it. That is part of trying to claim a cause for the upward acceleration effect. And I don't claim a cause. I'm just noticing the effect. So
right, I don't even know if they
subscribe.
claim a cause. I'm pretty sure that Einstein explained it in his thesis written about upward acceleration. So I don't think that you have any work to do, because you give a pretty great synopsis of Einstein, of relativity, and do it better currently than the people in the Flat Earth Society who try to espouse to it, but do it in a very, very poor fashion. So, frankly,
okay, fine.
I mean, they could really, really, really use to basically get some downloaded information from you, basically, because it would really, really help them out a bit.
Yeah, that would be great. Anyway, I don't really care about them at all, because they haven't done anything for decades. So, yeah.
Well, the thing is, maybe they've been doing more than we think.
You got me flat-footed. It would have been nice if you actually talked about this subject before we did a hangout. Because
we've been talking about the subject.
You put me in a spot, and I don't like that. Okay, so it would have been nice if you had actually addressed me about this concept before the hangout.
I thought we've been talking about it for an hour. I don't feel like I sprung
we weren't
anything on
talking
you.
about this.
It's exactly what we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks.
Well, this is the first time that you're bringing up, like, no, it's not an equilibrium, and that's the terminology that I've been using for over 2 weeks. And every single time I explain it, and this is the first time you're telling me, no, it's not an equilibrium.
No, there is an equilibrium, just not in a centrifuge and not on a spinning zipper.
I don't get that. It's the same effect. It's just a different rearrangement of the forces applied. But yeah, still there will be an equilibrium to some extent, not in in a typical fashion, because it's like a malformation, but still that can find an equilibrium within the body that is spinning. But anyway, let's. I'll just leave it to that. I'd love to hear more of you basically make a very elaborate case without me and maybe with Adam talking about why this is the case, because I really, really can't so far agree to this concept.
There's no
I'm
correction.
gonna
dude.
leave it to that. So yeah,
You gave a
I'm
great
gonna-
explanation of the concept. Like, there's no corrections to what you're saying whatsoever. Me and Adam have nothing to refute or argue against what you're saying. For the platform and standpoint that you're taking, like, we're not arguing against that. That's a completely separate and individual platform. And so how in the world are we going to try to refute that when that's simply not our fight and not our platform? And so when you found footing, how am I going to tell you that what you are currently venturing on is you shouldn't be doing? There's no research that shouldn't be being done. All research should be being done. You see what I'm saying? There's not any research that should not be being done. So therefore, when it comes to the equilibrium, there absolutely is. Like I explained with a submarine, when it's found its neutral buoyancy point in water. But when you put it on land, it's no longer at equilibrium. And so if I stand on a non-spinning merry-go-round, I'm at equilibrium. Once that thing starts to move at all, I'm no longer at equilibrium. And the faster it spins, the less equilibrium I'll be experiencing.
Okay. I think
until eventually I'll lose all control of myself and be
I
completely to the whims of the merry-go-round.
I think I understand better what you're saying. I think I found an error in my terminology, because
Thank you.
equilibrium is indeed officially when the forces from directions, whatever is happening, equalize, and technically an acceleration cannot allow equilibrium. That is what
Thank you.
acceleration is. So I have to find another word for it. But yeah, there is
Thank you.
a
Thank
new
you so
axis
much.
alignment change. And what would you call that? What
I'd
would you
like
call that?
I'd like a concession and an apology for you yelling at me over this last hour.
Fine. I apologize. But it would have been nice if you like brought this up beforehand.
We did. And Adam explained it to you as well. Now you simply understand, and so now you know that there was nothing
Yeah, but
malicious.
during the hangout, we've been talking for a month.
And I've never
This is the first time
changed
you
my
brought it up.
explanation. No, we've been talking about this for 2 weeks.
No, not this.
I know, because you just changed your standpoint yesterday. You changed from being downward acceleration force guy to relativity Einstein flat earth society paralleling guy. And so that doesn't change whether or not we're going to continue on with our mission to figure out the truth. You just changed your platform yesterday.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna have to find another word for whatever it is. I would call it the. Yeah, I don't even know what to call it now. It's
Because you
great.
don't owe it anything to call it anything right now. You
Yeah.
have time to figure that out.
Yeah, but
You don't have to come up with that right now.
yeah, but there's still an axis alignment change within the density buoyancy ratio. So yeah, it is caused by.
Something. But the fact is, me and Adam explained to you what was wrong, and now you finally figured that part out. And so now you've got some clarification here. And you can see that there was no malice in anything that I've said or any actions that I've
Let
taken
me try
here.
to redefine. Yeah, I know. It's just, I have feelings too. So
Absolutely. And I feel that I've been
apologize.
very respectful to you, Arwen.
Yes. Anyway, yeah, what would you call it? A specific disequilibrium rate? Like oh my God, I don't even know where
Yeah,
to start.
it's a bit to try to come up with, which is where I started the hangout with saying that things are being oversimplified. that there are things that are happening that are much greater and much smaller than we're giving them credit for. And so we need to give a slower, closer examination at both the big and the small to see what may just or may not be happening.
I think that this equilibrium rate would actually work. It is like equilibrium times acceleration when you put it into a formula.
But you're going to still have to deal with your relative density and your buoyancy of each object.
No, but I think I get it, because this equilibrium rate will cause, well, in accordance to how much it is disequilibrializing, will cause the alignment shift of the density buoyancy direction. So yeah,
Oh,
you
agreed,
somehow have to
100%.
find a way to measure it. But no, okay, I got it. I'll just call it disequilibrium rate. Jesus.
Exactly, disequilibrium rate. See, now you've got it.
Right. Okay.
Right, exactly.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Welcome to Flat Earth, bitches.
So yeah, I'm gonna call it now. So thanks Rasta for coming. I'm gonna go back to video, and you're gonna see me all freaking sweating. Thanks for that.
Any chance to rile you up, Arwen?
That's not even funny, dude. But yeah, whatever. I guess that a real friend actually challenges you, and yeah, you're certainly doing that. But yeah, it is having some use. It's making things more complicated, but it's necessary. So
Fortunately, I volunteer myself on a daily basis publicly to finding what the answers to this are and maintaining a very, very positive and enjoyable keel between us and basically the other open-minded, whatever shape earthers are that want to basically continue to seek out what these forces are, because we know that they are both many and few and both big and small. And I think that we have yet to really figure out what the details of those may be. They've been explained to us all with just so stories like up and down and light and heavy.
absolutely. So yeah, I'm gonna call it now. So thanks for coming.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Very much. Very much, Arlen.
All right. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. Well, what turned out to be a pretty heated debate. Drawn some new conclusions. Uh, Not everything is out of the way yet, but we certainly I made progress on the spot live here. Usually I do this in the background and then basically report on it. But yeah, upward acceleration effect. Uh, the disequilibrium rate causing the density and buoyancy alignment shift is new concept. So
I feel better hearing you speaking that terminology than any of the terminology that
Right.
I've heard you using thus far. Honestly, it sounds better on you.
okay, that's fine. Anyway, if I can do my talk, and then I can round out the show. So thank you
Absolutely.
everyone for coming. It's been a heated debate. It's been a very interesting talk. This is really up to par, high level stuff. We're getting somewhere. And yeah, please don't forget to upvote the Hangout and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, subscribe to Rust Ahead, follow his works, and Adam Meekin, of course, Mark Doxey. They all joined, they've left by now. Yeah, please check out their channels and subscribe to them. And yeah, I will see you in the next Flat Earth Talks. Keep it flat.